Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
We need to roll back the state. We spy on all of our own citizens. Our prisons are flooded with nonviolent drug offenders. If you want to know who America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding right now. Every single one of these problems are a result of government being way too big.
You're listening to Part of the Problem on the Gas Digital Network. Here's your host, Dave Smith.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith, and I'm in Austin, Texas, doing shows at the Comedy Mothership, and that means I'm joined by the great Scott Horton. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, man. We've been having a lot of fun hanging out on what has turned out to be kind of a historical weekend.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I want to talk to you about a lot of what's going on, but we should tell people you've been writing a book, which is part of the reason why people probably haven't seen as much of you lately as they did before. You did send me the most updated copy. It's phenomenal. I'm really excited for everybody to read it, because if you loved Enough Already and Fool's Errand, you're going to really love Unprovoked when it comes out. It is
Provoked.
I'm sorry. Provoked. I'm sorry. I messed
That's
up.
what they call
I messed
it.
up the propaganda
Yeah.
versus the Scott, but it is,
Yeah.
the book is just a great Hortonian, like, it's just this overwhelming case. It's like, as I was reading it, so you sent it to me. I had read like an advanced copy a couple years ago, but then when I was doing this debate with Vaush on Ukraine, you sent me the updated copy. So I was kind of going over it, and it's like that meme, the Simpsons meme of stop, he's already dead.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like every chapter is just like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's the case for this. And you're like, all right. Like halfway through the chapter, you're like, okay, I tap. Yes,
Yeah.
we provoked it. Okay, fine. Like I can't.
Yeah.
The Maidan Revolution was an organic uprising. Like, no, it wasn't. And here's the case. Anyway, very excited for that.
Thanks.
And then the other.
That's what's taken so long, is the overkill that you mentioned there. Yeah.
but
I'm working on it every day, I promise.
Yeah, no, well, it's fantastic. And then, of course, the other thing is the Libertarian Institute, which is your organization, is having their fund drive this week, right?
That's right. Our summer fundraiser. And, I think we probably talked about this back then, that when I started the Institute, it really was just sort of a nice way of saying, donate money to me and Will Grigg, but so that we don't seem quite like bums, that maybe we'll call it an institute.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, now I got like 20 guys, and I've published 14 books, including 4 of my own. And I got just an incredible group of guys, and we just added, only recently we've added new fellows. Bill Bupert, who's a Army veteran and expert critic of counterinsurgency warfare, the Chasing Ghosts podcast, and he's been writing a bunch for us. And then there's Jeremy R. Hammond, who is...
I love Jeremy. He's great.
This guy is the libertarian movement's foremost expert on Israel-Palestine, bar none.
Yeah.
He wrote the book Obstacle to Peace. He's our very best guy that we got on that. And then, of course, the great Danny Sanchez, who's an editor over at the Foundation for Economic Education. But then it occurred to me, I could have him at the Institute too? Well, hell, I love this guy. He used to write for me at AntiWar.com back 10 years ago, and he's just a wonderful guy. So we brought Danny on, and he's going to be writing for us a bit here. And then also Tom Edlam is our new William Norman Grigg Fellow. And he actually was Will Grigg's sort of, friend and protege at the New American Magazine back in their old John Bircher days, 25 years ago. And Tom is an Austrian school economist and really accomplished author and writer and brilliant guy. And then, and that's just the new guys. But anyway, we got a great stable of writers, all the best writers, and podcasts, of course, the ubiquitous and charismatic Keith Knight.
I love Keith Knight, obviously. He's coming on. I think we're doing a podcast later this week.
Oh, okay, great.
But yeah, he's great.
Oh,
yeah.
He's the best. And then Kyle Anzalone, who everybody knows, I think, I hired to replace me as opinion editor of AntiWar.com, and he hosts the podcast Conflicts of Interest, which is fantastic. And then there's Connor Freeman and Will Porter and Hunter Durensis and all our great guys. James Bovard and Lori Calhoun. See, this is the thing. We got our senior guys. Take Galen Carpenter. Cato fired their very best guy, and now he writes for me.
Yeah.
And And that's Tay Galen Carpenter. And then, of course, got the great James Bovard, which his other job is writing for the New York Post, right? Like he's the biggest big shot in libertarian journalism ever, and is my good friend and is a senior fellow there. And Lori Calhoun, who's working on another book for us. And Sheldon Richmond, of course, founding partner with me and Will Grigg, who writes for us every Friday and is, all-time libertarian. Great. So it's awesome, man. LibertarianInstitute.org/donate to help me pay those guys. That's all it is, basically. We don't have a big office building. And, as you know, my truck is 30 years old. I'm not blowing this money on anything except paying these guys to do their work. That's it.
Well, if you do, if you care about the ideas
It's
of
29
of
years
freedom,
old, my truck. I don't want to embellish.
Yeah, so let's be real here. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
But it is, if you care about the ideas of liberty and stuff like that, and you got a few bucks that you can part with, it's as good a cause as there is in this movement to donate to. It's from the outside looking in. It's been very cool to watch. Like when we first became friends. Well, I guess I had interviewed you a few times on the podcast, but it was I think the first time we met in person.
Yeah, it was right around then.
Started, or it was just getting started. Yeah. So it's cool to watch. That's something beautiful about life, the way you kind of manifest ideas in your head, and then or you have ideas in your head, and then they manifest in reality, and then it grows in its own thing.
Speaking of that, we got all these great kickbacks because we published all these 14 books so far, including our latest book is this guy, Gary Vogler. I guess I need to make him some kind of fellow or something, but he was the American sort of civilian viceroy of oil during Iraq War II and knows all the dirty secrets. And we published his book, which is Israel, winner of the 2003 Iraq oil war.
Wait. You're telling me Israel had something to do with the war in Iraq, Scott? I mean, come on.
I know you read enough already twice, so it's in there. But no, so what happened was actually he read my book, and I have this thing about the neocons, and they'd been promised by Ahmed Chalabi, the Iranian-backed lie spinner, that, we'll rebuild or reactivate the old British oil pipeline for most of the Haifa, and how the neocons bought it and Netanyahu bought it. And this was a big part of, because what had happened, I'm sorry, I'm off on a tangent. You got to read this guy's book. It's so good. Gary Vogler, and inside story, names all throughout of the neocons. So we're giving that away as a kickback, along with the great Tom Woods' COVID book,
which is so good.
James
this is the one,
Bovard's
by the way,
book, Last
for
Rites.
people listening. Tom's book is the one that I gifted to Chris Cuomo at the debate.
That's right. So if you saw Dave give that book to Cuomo and you thought, I'd like to have that book, or if you donate to the Institute, you can get that book as a kickback.
There you go.
As our friendly gift to you as a token of our appreciation for your support of our nonprofit organization.
My only regret about that, and I didn't even think about it till afterward, but I was like, I should have gotten Tom to sign the book for Chris Cuomo and write a personal little.
It was great
message.
though, because you could see it the whole time he's talking. It was there right side up on or almost. I think he moved it eventually, but through 3/4 of the whole thing, you could read the spine of the book the whole time.
Dude, I loved doing it. I loved that. I loved when you debated Will Chamberlain, and you gave him you gave him your book, and Justin Ramondo's book. That's right. And I don't know why it always, so whatever, the moment that made me a libertarian, or my first introduction to this, is the Giuliani, Ron Paul, which is almost hacky to be that's the moment a lot of people of my age who are libertarians found it. But a lot of people forget this, but it was so awesome. It was the next day, Ron Paul had a press conference, and he gave Rudy Giuliani a reading list, which was, it's such a funny.
Chalmers Johnson, Robert Pate, Michael Scheuer.
Yep, that's right. All those guys dying to win and all. And and that was my first thing was I got to read these books, he kind of gave me a reading list too.
Yeah.
Because I was just interested in it. But it was so funny because in that moment, Giuliani he's too dumb to even know that the point he's making makes him sound really dumb. So he goes, you're saying that bombing Iraq had something to do with 9/11? I've heard a lot of ridiculous things, but I've never heard that. He brags that he's never heard that. And you're oh, well, all right, maybe read something about it, and you'd realize this.
And of course, the big part of the spin was that Iraq had done it, or had been in on it, that their foreign minister had met with Mohammed Atta in Prague and had given him a flask of anthrax, the Israelis claimed. and all of that. So, well, why would Iraq attack us then? It had nothing to do with our bombing then. Like, even if he thought that, anyway. Sorry.
Right. Even if you were going with the neocon lies, it would still kind of make sense that there was some connection, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's why was Saddam in on 9/11?
Yeah.
Right.
No, this was Egyptians and Saudis avenging those Iraqis,
Right,
but they'd
right.
never been to Iraq. It had nothing to do with that. But
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on, the elephant in the room, I guess, which is like impossible to get away from. So as we're recording this, and you know, this podcast will be out pretty soon, but we do kind of live in a world where I'm like, this may all be irrelevant by the time this comes out, because maybe the 25th Amendment's invoked before we finish recording this. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen? But
Seriously.
Yesterday, truly historic moment. Donald Trump was apparently shot in the ear.
Amazing.
It's just, listen,
New York
dude,
Post has the close up of his ear, and it's, you know, it hit him just like.
yeah, I mean,
And then if you see the footage, he's I think he's already looking to the right, but then he looks a little further to the right, and it's like just that is
little,
like
it's
what made it his
unbelievable.
ear, or maybe it's when he turns back. No, it's when he turns to the right, because it's like it would have got him here, but he's like, huh, and so it gets him here.
Well,
It's just
it's
you know,
unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It could have
The
been like
guy-
he went, oh, a penny, like
Well,
just a perfect timing.
They call him. I was
Incredible.
joking on stage about it. I said he just Inspector Gadgets his way through life. Like, it just seems like everything works out for him. And the idea that we were so close to being on a radically different timeline
Oh yeah,
in this country. I mean, Donald
Amazing.
Trump's brains get blown out on live TV
Oh
at
my
this. I mean,
God.
what that does to this country. But then, of course, he just turns and gets hit. If you're going to get shot, the absolute best place to get shot, like just in the ear. I mean,
You think about it. Yeah, like I don't know, maybe the little toe or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no, the
that's-
ear is probably the best.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, people pierce their own ears.
right
I
there.
mean,
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
You
like-
can just put a little hoop in there and be all right.
and then it just and then it turns into the best photo op in the history of politics.
And you got to give him credit for that. That right in that moment, he was like, "Oh hell yeah, I got blood on me. I'm not dead."
You can actually
Everybody's
hear
looking.
him go to the Secret Service. He goes, wait. Fist. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
wait. Hold on. Like, this is pretty cool. It was like
amazing.
it was like in Jerry Maguire. If you ever saw that movie where Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
he's like taken out with a vicious hit, and they think he's like paralyzed or some shit, and then there's a moment where he wakes up and he goes, wait, let me enjoy this. You know, and like it's like Trump has that. Wait, hold on. We're gonna milk this thing for what it's worth. So
Right.
just a total like disaster for Joe Biden, really, is what it all. I mean, to the juxtaposition of Joe Biden going through these few weeks where the big thing is, man, his brain doesn't work. And then you juxtapose that with Donald Trump, like blood dripping, giving the fist. I mean, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah. Well, and also, and look, I'm not a partisan. I'll never be a Republican or a Democrat. Never have been. I'm not a former either, or never could be, or anything like that. But I just, you don't even have to favor Trump over Biden at all, which I admit I do a bit. Not that I'd ever support him, really, but I think you could even just be a Democrat. Go, you know, all this stuff where Biden, every time he addresses Trump, he says that this is like a world historical threat to the future of democracy on the planet Earth, and whether people will ever be free again after this guy turns America into a Nazi dictatorship and all that. Like, this is mostly just Israeli propaganda, but it works like all around too. Wouldn't you kill baby Hitler, even if he's a baby, to stop him from doing the terrible thing? Well, Trump's not a baby. He's already been president before. You saw how dangerous he was when Russia was in there or whatever crap, you know, liberal Democrat spin. You'd see, it seems like the leftists, they like no COINTELPRO when they see it, right? But the liberals, they buy into the stuff. But anyway, this guy apparently was a liberal who did this thing, but it just seems like, yeah, that they can't just say, well, I don't know. They have nothing to run on really at all, other than this guy's so uncouth and he like,
well,
we don't quite control him. We're afraid Netanyahu controls him more than we do, or whatever their small fear about him is. But so then they build him up into this. It's the same thing that they do to Putin or Saddam Hussein or whatever. David Koresh, they call him Hitler and they accuse him of being like the world's worst enemy. Are you really surprised that on the margin, a random kook grabs a rifle and decides he's going to be a hero and try to do the right thing and stop this evil from destroying the land? I mean, you can't help but it's like a fact, right? Joe Biden said that, and this kid heard it. And it at least must have been some part of his thinking here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, look, and
That, like the most extreme interpretation of Trump ratified by the president himself.
Sure.
He says, yes, you are right to be that afraid of this guy winning.
well, it's so fascinating on so many different levels. And obviously this is all like, all of these, it's kind of a principle of within reason. You know, I'm not saying that anybody, even somebody who makes the most hyperbolic, insane claims about Donald Trump, they're not responsible for someone then going out and doing something violent. But at the same time, like, look, what's
Put the
his
shoe
name?
on the other foot and see what would they say.
Sure, right. But like, look, someone like Hinckley, right? That was the guy who shot Reagan.
Yeah.
So Hinckley, well, he did it to impress Jodie Foster or whatever. Now you can't blame Jodie Foster for that because it's like,
nuts,
because that's just insane.
Yeah.
But there is something, like to your point, I think almost
Well, if the president had been saying, or say, I don't know, George Bush, the vice president,
Right.
had been saying, you really want to know how to get Jodie Foster to like you, John.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Well-
Like really inciting him in that way. That's kind of the equivalent.
Well,
here.
it's one of those things,
you know?
like when I first saw it, like a few minutes after it happened, I got like a bunch of texts and I'm looking on Twitter and stuff. And it's almost like you have two contradictory thoughts. Like when it first happens, you're like, how the hell was this guy able to get a gun into like an event with a former president? And then like a beat later, you're like, how has no one done this yet? Like how, when tempers are so high, has this not happened? How did it take this long, And there is something, like to your point, where it's almost like because the establishment was so vulnerable, and on some level they know how corrupt they are and how bad a job they've done, that they couldn't just make the case against Donald Trump, which if the establishment was at all competent, would be very easy to just be like, guys, look, we don't want to have this buffoon be the leader. I mean, come on, this guy's got no experience. He speaks in such an unprofessional way, or whatever the argument might be. But instead, they know they don't have that, so it's been DEFCON, since he was running in 2016, and all of the outrageous lies. I mean, Vladimir Putin is involved in a conspiracy with him to overthrow democracy or whatever. He incited an insurrection.
Isn't it funny how they're not bringing that up, even though the stakes are 100 times higher because we're in the middle of a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine right now, and they're
Vladimir
not
Putin's
saying,
guy is about to be in again.
And, no one's saying, "Oh my God, they're gonna."
Which in
with the thing.
itself, which is interesting because
Amazing, isn't it?
Right. So that in and of itself is an admission that this was all bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then the same
They
thing
don't
is
even
true.
want to try to
So
make the case again.
Well, I tweeted, I guess just because it was yesterday and it was such a big thing, but it's gone. I've never had a tweet that's gotten as much attention as this one. It's got like hundreds of thousands of likes on it or whatever. But just tweeting yesterday that Barack Obama and now today Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, all of them come out. They wish Donald Trump a speedy recovery and they denounce political violence. And you're like, okay, look, he's either literally Hitler or you wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
You got to pick one of those two. You don't wish Hitler a speedy recovery. Like that's just, if democracy's on the ballot and this is the end of America, as Hillary Clinton has said, this is the end of America if Donald Trump gets elected again. Well, then, okay. But then political violence is justified, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's got to be one of the two of those.
Well, and we
and
know
it's
the
just
answer is they're lying.
Right.
They've been embellishing their case against him this whole time because he was only supposed to be a foil. That was how they wrote him into the story. And, I'm sure, I bet we probably talked about this on your show, the Pied Piper strategy email from 2016 from the Podesta campaigns at wikileaks.org. Anyone can find, just type in Pied Piper strategy.
Yep.
That's what they call it. We want the media to promote the wingers. They're the ones will be easier to beat in the general. And that's Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, and Donald Trump. And especially they obviously focused on Trump, building him up. And then the idea, and remember how easy to see it was. As soon as it was clear he had the nomination locked up, they turned on him on a dime and tried to character assassinate him the rest of the way. That was how it was supposed to work. But he won anyway. As Norm Macdonald said, the American people hate Hillary Clinton so much. They voted for someone they hate even more than her. Just fuck you, lady, and make that point. Right. And so but that ain't how it's supposed to be. All this stuff is supposed to be planned out, work real well. It's probably supposed to be Jeb because nobody thinks Hillary could have beat anyone really, but it certainly wasn't supposed to be this guy. And it's just that loss of control over the system itself that I think has them so panicked. You know what I mean?
I think there's no
They didn't
question
panic
about
over
that.
W. Bush. The moment the Supreme Court ruled that we're stopping the counting, Bush wins, every newsreader on MSNBC and CNN and all these channels clicked their little heels and went, President-elect George W. Bush today, blah, 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 blah. They were just in 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no threat from him that they perceived in that way at all, the way that they treat Trump.
No, it's absolutely a different thing. I mean, they've pretended to really be scared of other people or really hate other people, but you can also kind of tell like where the difference is. And that's one of the things Trump kind of exposed. By the way, just to your point about the Podesta email, the Pied Piper strategy. I mean, this was during the primaries. And if you remember at the time, I mean, MSNBC and CNN, they covered every Trump every event.
That was it.
I mean, they gave him all the free publicity in the world that they wanted. And yeah, it's because they thought he'd be vulnerable.
Contact our friends in the media and ask them to do this for us or whatever, you know, paraphrasing. But it's right there in the thing.
Yep.
This is clearly what happened. I mean, remember Morning Joe? They'd had Trump on all the time. This is such an important news show for DC people. They have him on all the time. The moment it's clear that the nomination is locked up, they all completely turned on him in such a like artificial and obvious way.
Yeah, so. And it's so interesting, like the corner that they've painted themselves into. I mean, this has just been so fascinating particularly over the last few weeks when, you know, they did kind of in a sense, it really blew up in their face because, you know, there's like a kernel of truth to the media narrative. You know, it's surrounded by much more bullshit, but there is a kernel of truth to the narrative, which is that, you know, obviously anybody who has two eyes and 2 ears and it does not have a brain that's so warped by confirmation bias that they could just see what's right in front of them. Joe Biden's been in severe mental decline for quite a while now. I mean, there's just no question about this. You know, he wasn't that bright to begin with. He always thought he was a lot brighter than he is, like younger Joe Biden, but he's fallen off quite a bit. However, the kernel of truth in the media narrative is that actually it's gotten drastically worse recently. Like this version of Joe Biden right now is actually substantially worse than he was a year and a half ago, even though he was already slippery. Yeah. I mean, it's like really, really bad now. But so this is blown up in their face, but you know, it was like it's debatable, but I think Bernie Sanders was actually more unacceptable to the establishment than Donald Trump even was. Like they were really determined to get that guy at, like he was not allowed to be doing what he was doing. And I think not that, you know, I think for both of them for somewhat similar reasons, it was always more about their rhetoric and what their campaign meant than it was about any actual policy.
Yeah, they don't
agenda.
really mind him being a senator, do they?
No,
all these years.
Well, also because look, what Bernie Sanders is always advocating is always going with the wind. So it's always that there should be more centralized power in DC, and they're fine with that. You know, it's kind of like if you read Murray Rothbard's The Progressive Era book, you know, it's like the powerful business interests are fine with this like general direction of a managed economy.
Absolutely.
We're going to be doing the managing and we'll be controlling how the actual legislation goes.
Yes.
But like, but so you say, oh, you want universal health care. By the time it makes it through the DC machine, it'll be Obamacare. We're fine with you saying that. It'll just be good for business, you know?
Yeah.
But
the short version, Left and Right, The Prospects for Liberty by Murray N. Rothbard,
so
1965.
Good. So good.
Yes.
Such a great piece.
Go ahead.
But the issue with Bernie Sanders was none of that. The issue is that his whole campaign, whether he says it directly or not, the spirit of the whole thing is fuck billionaires and fuck banks and you know, turns out billionaires and banks, they've got some influence over our political system and they're not such a big fan of that being the central message, you know? So he was unacceptable for you know, those reasons. And so they had to get him out, and there was just nobody else. They floated out Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and all these Pete Buttigieg,
Beto O'Rourke, remember that?
It was the only one they had a shot with was Biden, and then they took Kamala Harris as his VP to add like a historic aspect to the campaign, and now they're painted into this this corner.
Well, and they've lied this whole time about he's just fine. And I don't know if I showed you this or your audience should know. there's a guy named Orf, and he is associated with Matt Taibbi.
Mhm.
But how you spell his name with a 0 instead of an O.
Yeah, you sent me his video. Oh, it's so great.
He's got this great video, and he did the one, if people remember, like the video collage of them saying about Trump, oh, the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in. It's the same guy. And they're just going, oh, Biden is sharp. He's so sharp. Man, he's sharp. He's sharp, sharp, sharp. He's sharp, sharp, sharp. And then like sort of in the second half, he like fades the montage over into sharp as attack. Tack, tack, tack. Sharp as attack. Boy, is he sharp as attack. He's sharp just like tacks are sharp. You know how sharp tacks are. Biden's just like that. And then it's just like a million of them. It goes on for, I don't know, 8 minutes or something of just these little clips of all these kooks. And of course, if you're like really media literate, you recognize a lot of these voices in there. And then it's just crazy picture of Biden looking like a lost zombie in the debate while they're all saying that. It's just the memo, again, like the Pied Piper thing. The memo has gone out. Biden is sharp. You believe that, and you're going to tell everybody that. Get out there and smile and say it.
It's
and
unbelievable.
They've done it. So what they do, because of that, they cancel the primaries. They had no primaries. And they refused to allow RFK or Marianne Williamson or any of these people. And of course, if it was open, a lot more people would have got into the thing. And of course, as you're saying with Kamala, they can't just anoint her the leader. He could resign right now, like Gorbachev Yeltsin resigning 3 months before the election to give Putin a boost. They could try that right now, but of course, he's not going to do that. And she's so weak. And I think it's funny to read the Democrats talking about, maybe we could run Kamala Harris. And it's just like, man, you guys are in denial. She is just so incapable.
Well, I thought Van Jones made a really good point. I played this on the podcast last week. But I actually, and it was still, it's Van Jones. So you could tell he just has a different like philosophical outlook than us. Like he's like an Alinsky trained, progressive. And so he kind of alludes to that without alluding to it, where he's like, hey, listen, like if we're going to do this, we got to be all behind Biden, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, okay, but like, I won't say anything if we're not allowed to, but he's like, just so you know, we should be running Kamala Harris because we're already running Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Like Biden's at the stage where if you're running Biden Harris, nobody thinks this guy's going to be president for 4 more years.
And just think of that you're running a president where it's universally understood he won't be finishing the term. Yeah. And no one thinks that he will. But we're still running him, though.
It's unbelievable.
At all.
Yeah.
And they had, it was funny, I saw someone talk about, whoa, we got a real deep bench. We ought to have a great convention and free all the delegates to vote and let all of our great governors and senators get up there and debate. And it's like, who? They're talking about Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom. Like, what has Gavin Newsom got? He's got hair. And even then, I think he's got a little bit of the Horton pattern baldness going on, right? But then like he kind of grows it out long. Doesn't work, I learned. But otherwise, he's known as the guy who ran the land of milk and honey into the ground. This is the first time the population of California had a net loss since the Spanish began conquering the son of a bitch 500 years ago. And hundreds of thousands of people left California. San Francisco and LA are world renowned for being dystopian nightmares. And I've been to LA like a year and a couple of months ago. I went out to LA to do that Waco thing. Mm-hmm. And man, it is just bad, dude. It is crack zombies or heroin junkies or whatever everywhere, dude. Like,
no, dude,
you ought to be able to bring your gun when you go to California, man.
Well, no, my buddy Jay Okerson is a great comedian he's not political at all. And he just always loved San Francisco. He goes, it's like one of the best comedy cities. Like,
and I should say, I love LA. I mean, I might be a Texan, but I lived there a couple of years and I got a soft spot for it. But
no, but it is
what it is.
It's collapsing, dude. And then even Jay was saying about San Francisco. He's like, he was just there recently. He goes, it's miserable, man. He goes, it's sad. It's like, I used to love this city and it is miserable. You don't want to walk down the streets there, dude. Like you're walking over needles and shit. It's horrible.
They're going to make this guy their guy?
Very hard to do.
And they're talking about Governor Pritzker, who's like a born billionaire.
Yeah.
The heir of, is it Marriott Hotels, I think, fortune?
Is that right? Yeah, maybe. I mean, well, then the crazy thing in the backdrop of all of this is that the Republican National Convention starts tomorrow. Like that's fucking Donald Trump. I don't know what day he's supposed to speak there, but like it's coming up in a few. How long are that? Usually 3 days or something like that. Like it's coming up pretty soon, and so that will probably be. I'm guessing, just purely guessing. I'm guessing that that's going to be like the last time we see Donald Trump is the fist with the blood, and the next time we see Donald Trump is his acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention, which is just like. All of this is just like out of a fucking movie, man. Like you just couldn't even write it.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Nevin Eyewear. The summertime is here and you need some cool sunglasses, and these ones are a steal. Crisp lenses, a lot of styles at fantastic prices. You got to check out Nevin Eyewear. If you're like me, you've bought really expensive sunglasses and lost or broken them, or if you grab pairs from the gas station or convenience store, they don't look good, they don't feel right, the lenses are all off. Nevin Eyewear has polarized lenses. You're going to love the clarity of the shaded lenses. They've been great. I just brought a couple pairs of them on vacation with me. They're super affordable. They got a bunch of different styles and they look and feel great. Check them out, Nevin Eyewear. And right now, fans of this show, if you want to try a pair of regular sunglasses, you will get 50% off any one regular pair when you use the promo code PROBLEM. Or if you want to stock up, you can get their buy one, get any two free deal. These discounts are not available on prescriptions, but everything else is buy one, get two free. So go check them out, nevineyewear.com. Quality shades at a great price, nevineyewear.com. All right, let's get back into the show.
Did you see the New York Times photograph of the air being disturbed by the bullet going by?
Yeah.
It was amazing. Dude.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible, dude. I mean, it's really now,
The whole thing is just... and look, wait, sorry, because I got Biden brain myself real bad. It's self-inflicted, but it is what it is. The BBC interview with the redheaded guy, the important one, the eyeball witness to the guy on the roof. And the key there, and this is highlighted in the New York Post today, although it's not in the New York Times, they didn't talk about this in the Times, is that he was saying, he was like, hey, Secret Service guys, there's a guy on the roof, like for 2 to 3 minutes before he started firing. And they just essentially ignored him. And he didn't say it was, and the reporter didn't ask good enough follow-up questions about like, well, which cop's standing where, you know, you were hollering from how far away, or you went up and talked to them or what, you know, exactly. And in fact, the reporter did say, he goes, well, do you think that they could see him? And he goes, no, because he was on the other side of the ridge of the roof. So they probably couldn't see him. But, and then he just goes off on his opinion instead of sticking to the facts. But it was a smart take was, why wasn't there a Secret Service officer on that roof already himself anyway? You let other people control rooftops around where
you
guys
just would have assumed.
Yeah.
Like any rooftop that's within rifle distance, what you would assume would be.
And I have to assume that the guy is right to assume the way he did, that they heard him, that he was saying there's a guy with a rifle, because then he says, not just there's a guy like he was pointing, but he let them know the guy had a rifle, and he said he couldn't understand why Trump was still on stage, why they hadn't already hollered code red or whatever, and ad-libbing that part, but why they hadn't called the alert to get him the hell out of there. And so, and this just goes to like basic accountability in the American system of government, that we didn't all wake up this morning with the head of the Secret Service resigns.
Yeah, really. Oh, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And like, what do you mean she didn't resign? Like, we're living in a world where I'm the only one who thought of that? Or what are we talking about? She should not even be in office at all today. It should have been over. But when the sun came up, she should have been at the White House delivering her resignation and apology. Or is no one responsible or what? And I think we need to know. The Secret Service accused by Redhead of ignoring his warnings. I want to know their names and their excuse for what they thought. Because they say it was the sniper, the Secret Service sniper, who took the guy out once he started firing. And he was himself on an elevated position on a roof. So could he really not see the guy the whole time? And in fact, I mean, I don't know. I got the impression at one point that the Secret Service sniper had noticed him, but just hadn't killed him. You know,
which is crazy.
Or like maybe he didn't see the rifle, so he was just kind of suspicious. But the guy got off 8 shots before they took him out.
Yeah, it's a lot of shots to get off.
Or actually, I don't really know.
Well,
that.
maybe some of them were the CIA or the
There's
Secret
a burst
Service
of 3,
members.
and then there's a burst of 5.
Right.
For all I know, it's the Secret Service shooting the 5. Although I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe
I
some
think
more of this will
it
come
looked
out.
like
Maybe
more
not.
of a single shot type
Now-
rifle that the Secret Service sniper would have had. But I'm ignorant of such things.
It's
Really,
also-
and I don't have a picture of it.
I will say it was also okay. It was fairly unbelievable to watch that there were. First of all, the Secret Service, when they come and they do what I was joking, looks like a Jewish bar mitzvah type thing where
Yeah,
they circle him or whatever, like they're going to lift him up on a chair. But when they're around him, then they're leaving his face exposed.
Yeah, his head's
but like
exposed.
covering the rest of his body, which
Well,
you're like, that seems like. And then
This
the
one
amount
woman
of
is
women,
like, she's small.
the
She's
women,
a little.
one of them was
yeah.
cowering behind Trump.
Oh,
She
really?
like ducked down. There's a still photo where she's ducked down behind him, and then one of
Jesus
them like
Christ.
one of
Oh
them
my
can't figure out how to
God.
like holster their gun once they
I
get
saw
him
it.
into the car.
So
It's
this
just-
is the funny part that I saw was when they're putting him in the Suburban, there are 2 or 3 Secret Service men who are standing like this, and then behind them are 4 or 5 women or 3 or 4 women running around like chickens with their heads cut off. They don't know what to do, where to look, where to go, how close to the truck to stand, what they're doing. As you say, the one tries to holster her weapon a few times, but she misses, and I maybe realizes how stupid she looks, so she stops trying for a
Yeah.
second and then does it again. You know, like
it's unbelievable.
it is. You know, I don't know, man. Like your bit about, hey, there are roles for men and women. Where look, the role of security guard for the president should start with giant barrel chest, because that is literally the job, dude. The upper body strength is the shield
Yes.
to take the bullet. You gotta, I'm not a very big guy. You got a woman about my size up there trying to block him. What the hell's she blocking? Look at me,
Yeah.
dude. I'm 1.5 feet wide. I'm not blocking anything.
Right.
You know?
No, I mean, I remember talking about this when they started having female
About 1.5 feet,
refs.
right?
Yeah, something like that. They started having women refs in the UFC. And I saw there's one time where there was like a chick reffing a heavyweight fight. And I was like, dude, I've seen heavyweight fights before where the guy doesn't break when the ref tells him to break.
Oh, yeah.
And like the ref has to physically break them up. Like, what the fuck is a chick gonna do to
Right.
a fucking heavyweight UFC fighter? I don't care who you are. He's a heavyweight in the UFC.
Right.
By definition, there's no woman who can fuck with this guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not like you have to beat him in a fight. You just got to be able to grab him and peel him off of somebody.
Right.
But I would say, it's like the same
That
thing.
takes a lot of strength.
If there was a ref,
especially the guy's on full adrenaline beating the hell
Yes,
out of a guy
right.
on full mode.
but it would also apply
you know?
to, like you said, to me or you. Me or you should not be allowed to ref a
Right.
heavyweight UFC
Seriously.
fight. It should be
Same
a
reason.
heavyweight
Right.
who has martial arts training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who can at least like theoretically hold this
And
guy
you,
off.
You look at the Secret Service agents in all the footage of Hinckley shooting Reagan. They're all big linebacker looking dudes who at least like played college ball or whatever. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? They're
something.
big guys. That's the job. I mean, you're talking about security. Like, what boxes are you trying to check other than are best equipped to protect this guy's life? There's
Yeah.
other boxes. Looks good in a ponytail or whatever. Like, you know?
Diversity, we have a very diverse Secret Service. Yeah, so but it's just it's a wild time. To me, I mean, this is more or less this is how I've looked at it for a while, is I've said that, and I think to some degree you see this dynamic being somewhat revealed since Biden's, horrific, catastrophic debate performance, that you kind of see where the power really is. And that there is something where it's dispersed, right? Like, it's not as if the way the United States of America's, like power structure works is that it's just in this sector or it's just in this agency, right? Like, there's different competing power sources. But you see where obviously there are people who are in Biden's cabinet, or even in his family, or people like that, who are highly incentivized for Joe Biden to get another 4 years, right? Like Jill Biden,
Especially his son.
well,
needs
right.
a pardon.
Someone who your father's in the White House can pardon you at any time for any federal charges.
Yeah.
Jill Biden is just some lady, if Joe Biden isn't the president, rather than being, I don't know, whatever a first lady who's punching above, say, First Lady typical levels of influence, because clearly the guy does not completely have his mind.
And plus, she gets to be on magazine covers and be fancy
She's,
and all that.
right, exactly. She's in the, and then you have people like, you have whoever his chief of staff and his national security advisor and his, these people, they have a job with him. They maybe don't have another job at this level without him. But then there's real power. You know, there's weapons companies, there's big banks, there's big pharmaceutical companies, there's all this. Now, all of them, all they care about is that it's not Trump. Like they are fine with an establishment Republican. It could be Mitt Romney, it could be Jeb Bush, it could be Hillary Clinton, it could be Kamala Harris, like whatever. Just get someone in there who's going to keep this thing moving. And they have recognized that Joe Biden is not the best shot at beating Donald Trump. Right. And so this is why you see in the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, like the knives are out for Biden. Man. And it's amazing to watch.
Reading the New York Times right now about Biden is incredible to see. And it's almost like the Iraq War, like Syria type agenda. That like, this is the narrative and everybody turn it up to 11. Biden's got to go. It's all like, betrayal from within his own faction. To the nth degree, which he deserves and which I love and I relish. I think, and he's the perfect symbol for the empire, really. I almost would rather keep him for that reason, but I don't really wish the worst on my country. But he's just the perfect avatar for the empire itself at this point. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's where America is Joe Biden. That's the stage of empire that we're in.
And you think, I keep writing these history books about how bad all the presidents and their policies are. And, I guess like one way you could sum it up, all these things, the terror wars in the Middle East and all of our Eastern European policy too, is it's like Joe Biden has been the president this whole time. He didn't drop out on that plagiarism scandal in 1987. He won the election of 88 and he's been president since 1989. And every bit of this is what he did or would have done. Although actually I think that's not true because I think he opposed Iraq War I.
He did.
But then he felt really bad about that. And he was determined to live that down and become the world's worst hawk ever since. So.
He's not the only one. And I mean, Christopher Hitchens, I think was against the Persian Gulf War.
Although he was only a governor at the time, but still.
Yeah. He? Did he oppose the first war? Bill Clinton
and then
did?
Was real sorry about it too.
Right.
Oops, and it turned out everybody really loved Operation Yellow Ribbon. That's bad PR to have opposed that.
Well, but it is interesting. And of course you've written the book on it, but it is, I certainly remember well. I mean, I was a little kid during that war, but the lesson that everyone took from the first war in Iraq was how much we can do this type of thing.
It's so fun.
And like
easy,
this was, listen, like 0 American casualties, relatively speaking, cheap. You know what I mean? Like it didn't really make any dent in our economy or anything like that. And look, we could just get the result we want. We got a Bob Hope special. Everyone's happy. Like, okay, some fucking Iraqis got incinerated or whatever. But hey, listen, Saddam was treating them pretty bad anyway. And so that's that. We chose to leave him in power. So at least, you didn't see the catastrophe in Iraq of what happened when we took him out. Right. So you leave him in power, just a weakened version. And okay, yes, some Kurds got slaughtered because we told them to rise up with some Shiites or whatever. And but no one over here really cared about that. And the lesson was that essentially the neocons, I mean, they're right. It's a unipolar moment, and we can do this type of stuff, and that's that.
And worse, the only flaw in the whole thing was that we really should have gone all the way to Baghdad and took care of that evil Saddam Hussein right then.
That's what left you. But the fact that we didn't do that is what left open the room for people to say, man, we should have just done that one more thing because look, this worked out so great anyway. We could have made him a full democracy, if we had just done that. And interestingly enough, it was actually Dick Cheney, who is on tape. This became pretty famous later, but that Dick Cheney was, and what was his job in HW's administration?
Secretary of Defense.
He was the defense secretary, right? So he was and he's going, no, listen, you would have had a quagmire, and explains it pretty perfectly how it would have gone. And
I like how he's actually at AEI headquarters when he says that, which is War Party headquarters circa 20 years ago.
Right.
And it's 1994. And you could tell he's not just defending Bush Sr.'s policy. He's saying it was the right thing to stop because we'd have had to hunt down Saddam Hussein, which might have taken a long time and been a costly, deadly campaign. We'd have been trapped in fighting in urban warfare. You had Iran. He goes, pieces of Iraq might fly off and Iran would come to dominate the South. Oh, huh? You don't say. And then he weirdly says, and Syria would like the West, which is not right. Only when you get rid of the Alawites and replace them with the Islamic State Caliphate in another 10 years will they take the West. But close enough, dick. And then he says, and of course, if we set the Kurds in the north free, then that brings them into conflict with our NATO allies, the Turks. And so who wants to get involved in a big, as you say, it'd be a quagmire.
Yep.
So we decided, forget it.
Sure would be one. Dude, the fucking, one of the best things.
Biden had the solution though. Biden said, we just go in and break the country into 3. And I mean, yeah, a million people will die in the process, but whatever, man. He knows what to do.
Well, there was in those days, right? And this is part of what transformed the Democratic Party into being the just, cartoonish monsters that they are today, is that the knock on, if you remember, because we're a little older than maybe some of the people who listen to this show, but so you had, Reagan got 2 terms. Reagan was president from 1980 to 1988 or 81 to 89. And then his vice president, George H.W. Bush, comes in, and this is, that's when the war happens. And so this is it's a 12-year run of Republicans controlling the White House.
Right.
And in this environment, the knock on Democrats is that they're weak. And they're still kind of living in this. The last Democratic president is Jimmy Carter, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like they're weak.
Eagle
Look at the
claw and
hostage
all
deal.
that,
You also
yeah.
cover this in your book, and which is a real interesting chapter in American history, like the Reaganites working out this
bad,
deal. But so to understand 90s Democrats, which is what Joe Biden is essentially still to this day. Right. And what Bill Clinton really transforms the Democratic Party into is that it's a constant counter
running
to this narrative that we're fucking pussies. And so what do you do when you're pussies? Well, I'll throw every goddamn black in jail and I'll bomb any country you tell me to bomb. That's how not pussy we are. It's kind of like Trump sending the weapons into Ukraine.
Hillary's the worst at this too.
Yes.
The women are the worst because if you're a Democrat, you're considered a woman anyway. So if you're a Democratic woman, now you got to prove you're willing to kill anyone.
Yeah.
Right. And they're all like this too. They're all the worst hawks. And Hillary, I mean, she lost to Obama in 2008 because she was a hawk and he was less worse. And then what does she do? As soon as she gets in there, she starts a war in Libya. She makes Obama let her do it because the whole plan was she was going to run on Libya in 2016.
I remember
her great accomplishment of the war.
They started immediately after it. They started running pieces about what a great accomplishment this was. They had to
by
forget
16,
about all those.
They shut up.
Oh no, they weren't running on that. What was it?
In
years
fact,
later.
There's a funny clip you can find at Real Clear Politics, where they ask Hillary about Libya in one of the debates, and she goes, "Hey, look, that was Obama did that. I mean, hey, all I did was give him some advice, but that was him that made that call, not me."
There was no more running on that.
That was Ayman al-Zawahiri and you that made that call, lady.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. Well,
but they just dropped it because nobody cared anyway, right?
But
Libyans.
So the point being that this is part of what happened for those Democrats like Joe Biden who opposed the first war in Iraq. Now, of course, we know, right? Like if you read Scott's book or if you've just listened to podcasts that we do together or your show or something like that, you know that obviously it's well, no, actually the lesson is that it was another 30 years of bombing Iraq, of losing thousands of American lives lost there. And as you point out, tens of thousands, if you count the suicides in the wake of the war, which probably should be, factored in also. Not to mention the small little price of well over 1 million innocent Iraqis being killed and trillions of dollars. But at the time, the lesson was, oh, you look like such an asshole for opposing that war now. Now you don't get to celebrate at the Bob Hope special. You know what I mean? You don't. And so they corrected and never made that mistake again. There was never a war that they weren't going to jump on board with.
Yep.
I mean, maybe there were some House Democrats who opposed war in Iraq, the second one.
Well, and you know that there's such a crazy dynamic with Trump where the government itself hated him so much that the liberals could still identify with the government just as much as they had during the Obama years. It was
Yep.
just the president that they hated. And so they didn't have, I guess, any kind of policies, whatever they opposed that was going on during his time was just put on him.
Right.
And was never, in a way where during the W. Bush years, it's not like they turned anti-government. We're still talking about liberals and progressives and leftists and whatever. They were like certainly on, the national security state stuff. They were like became really non-interventionist because Bush was torturing people to death and just, he told 10 million lies. Well, I mean, they counted it was 937 lies to get us into Iraq War II and all this. So because that was the centerpiece of everything that was so corrupt and wrong about Bush, it was something that they became really good on there for a little while. And really, like, if you go back, what they did, the Democratic Party took advantage of all that, like, genuine, decent sentiment, humanitarian sentiment. And then they just used it to climb back into the Congress. I mean, Cindy Sheehan held her great rally at, her campground there, Camp Casey, near George Bush's ranch in 2005 and 6. Wasn't really a ranch. It was a PR stunt that they bought. But anyway, and the Democrats basically just climbed on her back into the Congress. And in 2006, people go, it was when Obama came. It was really just Pelosi. It was when Pelosi came in, sworn in the new Congress in 2007. And they were like, whatever, Iraq, do what you want. Oh, you want to do a surge? Here's the money. You want to double the war that you've already lost? Here. And let them do it. And based on, getting elected on all that anti-war sentiment then. And then, of course, Obama came and it was like,
that was actually,
blew that anti-war sentiment's brains out.
That's
because
right.
It was,
I'll tell you, that was a big part of my political evolution was that Democratic Congress taking over. Because I, this is almost 20 years ago. And so, I was young and stupid. And I remember being really happy that the Democrats took the House in 06
and Senate
and that's right. Took the whole Congress.
Yeah.
And I remember going like, well, that's the end of that, because the Democrats have been out here saying this guy's a war criminal and all this shit. And now they control the purse string. So that's it. They're not going to fund your war anymore. And then there was kind of like, okay, so that was, disillusioning to see that, like, oh, actually, not only are they funding it, but as you pointed out, they're funding we're escalating the war that I thought we just had a repudiation of because, he won.
Don't worry, Dave, we got benchmarks. We're going to do these benchmarks and they're going to be benchmarks.
I was smart enough to see what bullshit that was. Like, even that couldn't fool a young dummy like me. And so that was, so it was the beginning of 2007. When they took over, I got disillusioned with the Democrats and how much all that rhetoric was just to get elected. And then it was Ron Paul just a few months later, who in the Giuliani moment. So it was like, it all kind of was like had lined up perfectly to be like, okay, let's hear what this guy is saying. They were all just full of shit opposing Bush, but this guy sounds like he really means it. Yeah. And he did, of course.
The overall lesson here being that partisanship is the mind killer and the spirit killer and the honesty killer. But also, that every time the parties change in power, and they're all such hypocrites and such liars, that then a lot of really great people wash out of the left and right leaning movements because there's just no place for them there. And that's why they ought to be looking into libertarianism, which we're just against everything.
That's it.
Which is like
just stop doing evil shit.
Yeah, just quit.
Well, I was talking about this when I was on Tim Pool's show, last month, I think. And I don't know why, but it was just interesting. So I had a tweet that went, kind of viral, and I said it was just like a simple tweet, which are the ones that do the best, the dumb, simple ones. But I just said Thomas Massie is more America first than Donald Trump will ever be, and it's not even close. And the reason I said that was because I had been watching, I guess that day, Thomas Massie had done Tucker Carlson's show. And he had that really, it was really good. Yeah. I was totally good and worth it. One of the things
he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's great. I love him. I met him at the convention. We got to talk for a bit, and he's just a great guy. And condolences to him on losing his wife recently, which is just horrible. But yeah, he's the best member of Congress, by far. And so anyway, so he was talking on to Tucker Carlson about how AIPAC has been trying to ruin his political life, and how he basically just told him from the very beginning, like in a Ron Paul way, where he's like, just don't even bother coming to me. He's like, there's no point for us to even be talking. And then that he is actually really funny, but that he won't speak to anybody from AIPAC, like they're not allowed in his office. But then there are these people who are like associated with AIPAC or whatever, and they'll like come to his door and they'll have like AIPAC pins on, and he goes, if you take it off, you can come in my office and speak to me. And he like makes them take off their AIPAC. Anyway, it's very funny. But he's talking about
Imagine
how
a congressman having the balls to take on AIPAC that way.
It's just
beautiful.
great. Well, they threw millions into his primary, and he survived it, which was great, and he won. But so that day, he said that, and then Trump had an interview like the same day where he was just like talking about how he's really pro-Israel and Joe Biden isn't as pro-Israel as he is.
Joe Biden's a Palestinian.
Which, by the way, I made this point on Piers Morgan the other day. That isn't it amazing, by the way, that just kind of like the Democratic establishment, the corporate media, but I repeat myself, and just like progressives in general have just spent the last like 8 years, maybe even 10 years since the birther stuff, screaming about what a bigot Donald Trump is. He's such a fucking bigot. And yet that comment, that got no attention. No one's appalled at the bigotry of turning to someone and calling them Palestinian as a pejorative, as like an insult. Like the worst thing you could fucking be is what Palestinian. It's like, it's on the level of if he just called him a Jew. I mean, I know, okay, it's not a religion, but whatever. Yeah. It's like the idea that just this entire people is an insult to you and not a peep. Like no one even, now look, I understand the story of the day was Biden fucking his disastrous performance, but like we could never get to that point. And this lifelong committed Zionist, Joe Biden, is a Palestinian.
It's the same
pathetic
way that Trump lost the last election, was trying to portray Biden as a communist and a left-wing radical, when, dude, the whole point is that Joe Biden is the man.
Yeah.
He's a senator from Delaware. He's Wall Street's, that's where all corrupt corporations are based in the Western Hemisphere, other than the Cayman Islands or whatever. That's where, which actually you should incorporate there too, because protect your tax, whatever situation. I don't know. But anyway, that's where he's from, right? And, has always been the senator. They call him the senator for MasterCard because he's the guy who made it illegal to declare bankruptcy over your credit card
debt. He's the credit card company's senator.
Yeah.
He's not a fucking communist. Like, how retarded are you?
And who's Trump in this situation? I mean, if you are Trump's campaign manager, we're talking 2020. Look, you may be the president, but you're still an outsider, clearly. And we got to continue this campaign of cleaning up DC against this horrible, evil establishment. What do? They run Trump as the status quo. And you don't want to let a dangerous revolutionary like Joe Biden mess with the status quo, do you?
Yeah.
Huh? And just, they're the worst, dude.
Well, and it's everything.
Right wingers, they're only going to do so good of a job, man.
Well, even like people who I really love and respect, like even I remember Tucker Carlson, who was great throughout 2020. I mean, really was like nothing short of heroic, especially because he had been the guy who was ringing the alarm bells about COVID. Like he was such a China hawk that early in 2020, in January and February, he was like, yo, they're all downplaying this, but this is a really serious virus that China's doing to us. And then when the lockdown started, it would have been so easy for him to just take a victory lap and be like, hey, look, I was the one who took this serious while Nancy Pelosi was out in Chinatown. I was telling you this is a serious virus. So yeah, it's serious. But then he heroically turned right on them and went, no, this is a crazy overreaction. We shouldn't be doing this. And this is not going to mitigate the virus. It's just going to destroy the country. And so but he did, I think, make the error of also lumping in like the Black Lives Matter riots with Joe Biden, as if like he used to refer to them as Biden voters. Biden voters are out looting in the streets. And you're like, okay, listen, I've seen the videos of those kids looting those stores. They're not anyone's voters.
Right.
These kids don't vote. Okay. Like they're not showing up for election day. They're trying to get some Nikes right now. You know what I mean? Like this isn't, and
or even if they're you can hold them
responsible for like you can make the connection in a more sophisticated way to understand what's really going on here, which is essentially, I mean, it seems more and more to me that I'll just say you're more the expert on this than I'll ever be. But there were a lot of, like, I've read a decent amount stuff you've written and stuff others have written about like color-coded revolutions in other countries. And let's just say there were many similarities in the year 2020
There
to
was
the
a-
way color-coded revolutions in like Eastern Europe seem to go down.
There was certainly a destabilization type campaign there. It was a huge part of why they overreacted on COVID the way they did, obviously in the Democratic states more than the others, which is actually a neat trick that instead of taking the rap themselves, they still got to push the blame onto Trump because it's still Trump's America, even though it's Michigan is the totalitarian police state in question, you know, and she got reelected. It's unbelievable.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Lumen, the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so you know exactly what's going on with your body in real time. Then Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It also tracks your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjusts your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step to improving your health, go to lumen.me/problem. That'll get you 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/problem for 15% off your purchase. All right, let's get back into the show.
And then, yes, the riots, there's the famous Time magazine article about how actually, yeah, we did rig it to save democracy, of course, and all that. And they talk all about how, you know, the Black Lives Matter riots that apparently like they could quite easily just turn them on and off, and they would activate them to go in this town or not in that town. And then for one major example, they instructed everyone to not show up on January 6th. Said this is going to be between the right wingers and the cops, and we're going to not be there at all. And they didn't show up at all. But it's like, wow, that's a hell of a text messaging network that you guys got where you can get the black bloc and, you know, these, you know, Antifa and all of these people who fancy themselves as revolutionary leftists to just step right into the pattern as determined by some Democratic Party NGO overlord.
Yep.
You know, like that's really something, man. And yeah, it seems to have worked. I mean, and you know, another part of it was the major censorship of all the new right leaders on social media.
Yep.
It was a huge thing. And then of course the Hunter Biden laptop. And also speaking of Gretchen Whitmer,
Gretchen Whitmer, that's right.
you know, everybody knows about
Manufactured October surprise. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. The fake kidnapping and murder plot of Gretchen Whitmer that was put on by the feds. People forget they debuted that at the beginning of October of 2020. So, and then the narrative went out that this is Trump supporters doing this. You know, the other thing is we always talk about the humiliation that Charlie Savage deserves for the rest of his life for the Afghan bounties hoax of 2020. But remember, the story wasn't just smearing Russia. The story was, and Donald Trump didn't do anything about it while the Russians are killing our guys.
Because wink, wink, nod, nod, because he's compromised by the Russians.
Accusing
That's
him of
why
treason.
he's still not.
Yeah,
and you know, this was one of the points that I tried
it's
to
completely
really
fake, by the way.
Sure.
There's nothing to that story at all. And Charlie Savage is a despicable liar.
And if again, for people, when the book comes out, you got to read Provoked, man, because it goes through all of this.
I got a section on that.
This was one of the points that I really tried to hammer home when I was doing that debate with Vaush the other day, that it's like, look, this is all this stuff, you know, the Vladimir Putin overthrew our democracy, had bounties on U.S. soldiers. This has almost become like a punchline now in America, and rightfully so, that it's like, look at the ridiculous narrative. But like, let's sit back and actually look at this. Imagine this from Vladimir Putin's perspective, where you're like, yo, like you'd almost have to feel like, you know, imagine how Saddam Hussein felt. like
Yeah.
right after 9/11,
They're
as
setting
they
me up.
start
Yeah.
building this case, you're like, yo, you are framing
Yep.
me right now for
Mhm.
something. Except the difference is that we're treating Vladimir Putin like he's Saddam Hussein,
Yep.
but he's not.
Yep.
He's fucking sitting on a huge stockpile of nuclear weapons.
So there's
with the biggest country in the world. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just fucking push this guy around like that.
So there's this new book called Nuclear War, a Scenario by Annie Jacobson. And it's based on all expert interviews and highest level sources and research and whatever. But then it's a fictional future scenario for how a potential nuclear war could start and get out of control. And the lesson is, and we know this from all the different war games that they practiced over the years, that if there's a nuclear war at all, it always devolves into general nuclear war. There are essentially no workable off ramps from nuclear war. And she shows this as well. And in the book, I'll go ahead and ruin it for you. So if you want to read Annie Jacobson's book, put your fingers in your ears for the next 90 seconds or something. But in the story, North Korea nukes the United States, DC and California. And nobody really knows why, but you know how them North Koreans are. George Bush forced them to get nuclear weapons, and Barack Obama and Donald Trump and Joe Biden completely failed and refused to negotiate an end to their nuclear weapons program and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula. So here we are. And they nuke the United States. And once would be one thing, but once they nuke us twice, that means now we gotta nuke them off the face of the earth, or they're gonna keep nuking us. So now we launch 50 H-bombs at North Korea. But the Russian satellite system is some janky ghetto type satellite software type situation compared to what the Americans have. The Americans can find via infrared any exhaust plume from any rocket launching anywhere in the world in an instant from space. The Russians don't have that, and they can't even look straight down. They got to look at the horizon, and their satellites often confuse clouds or sunlight for rockets coming. So they have to always do double and triple verification, this, that, whatever. Anyway, in the story, the Russians see the launch at North Korea and they think it's being launched at them. And instead of going, nah, come on, they're just nuking North Korea, the fictional Putin in the story reasonably concludes that what the Americans are going to do here is they're going to nuke our Russia off the face of the earth. And then they're just going to lie. And they're going to tell everybody it was us that nuked them. Because that's how they are. They lie about Iraq. They lie about everything. They lie about Russia all day, every day.
By the way, this is a great plot.
And so then
we
he
probably
launches,
would.
Yeah.
Our government probably
That's
would
right.
do that.
And so then he launches everything he's got and America ceases to exist. And that's how it goes. And that's a reasonable scenario. And it's based on interviews with the Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the head of the Strategic Air Command. And it's a worthwhile read. You know, it's everything she says in there is based on actual war plans, actual war games, actual everything. There's very limited menu of options once a nuclear war starts. And essentially it always just goes to full Holocaust, full apocalypse.
Well, it is crazy. I mean, did you see, I mean, I know you saw this because we talked about it the other day, but in Joe Biden's, in his interview post-debate where he was trying to prove how fit he is for the job.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes the Steelman test. He does a 20-minute interview with George Stephanopoulos, like let's just because to prove
Bill Clinton's man.
Yeah, right. A Democratic operative, whatever. But so he's trying to brag. Basically, his message is, yeah, look, I've slowed down a little bit. Maybe I don't quite debate like I used to. I used to be a ferocious debater. Remember when I took out Sarah Palin? Whatever. Anyway, but he's
that was a real accomplishment.
Yeah, right. I should talk. I debated Laura Loomer. So all right, whatever. But the point is, doesn't take much. But so he's there and he's like, but look at the track record, look at the track record of success. Like we're supposed to pretend Joe Biden has been like this amazing success as a president. But he goes, I'm the guy who put the Middle East peace plan into play. And I'm the guy who expanded NATO. As if like the level of like tone deafness to like though that's what you're bragging about. The successful NATO expansions and the peace, all the peace going on right now in the Middle East, it's just unbelievable. And so,
I think, he brought that up in the debate too. He said against Trump, hey man, I'm the one who came up with that great peace proposal for Palestine. And then Trump, of course, only attacks him for being weak and soft and a Palestinian, instead of going, what are you talking about, dude? The war is still going on. Netanyahu laughed in your face and threw that thing in the trash, and that was 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That conversation is over. That whole stupid plan was just a PR stunt. All it did was what? Kick the can down the road for 5 days until someone could come up with another new stupid lie or something?
Yeah,
It is not even worth talking about.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty incredible, particularly to watch where there's
And by the way, the Israelis murdered 90 people yesterday at this refugee camp, just blasted them to hell. And there's a story on AntiWar.com where this 16-year-old girl describes this toddler. She says her very young boy got his legs blown off and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, crawling on just his hands. And then they bombed him too, right in front of her eyes. That's Zionism. It's an absolute moral abomination, like equivalent to communism. It's the sickest thing. It's like back when it was legal to own human beings in Alabama. That is the moral equivalent of supporting Israel now, is being involved in something like that. It's the sickest thing in the world. I defy anybody. Look at antiwar.com. 4 days ago, did you see the video? They bombed the soccer game.
Yeah,
These kids are playing soccer in a parking lot, and they repeatedly bomb.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely sickening.
The level of how evil what Israel's doing to Gaza,
and
right
all
now
of that
is
is on
just-
Joe Biden. 100% of that is on Joe Biden himself. And they go, geez, I don't know. Is this guy clever enough to talk right into a microphone? Has he got the stamina to be the president for another 2 or 3 years? Well, how about let's review the shots he's been calling lately?
Yeah.
How about the fact that he said again in the debate with Trump, as he said in the State of the Union address a few months ago, Vladimir Putin swore in his declaration of war that as soon as he's done with Ukraine, he's coming for the rest of Europe. Well, that's not true. And the thing is about Joe Biden is, yes, he's a liar. And of course, Mr. President, you can tell any lie that you want, but does he know that that's a lie?
That's a good question.
And does anyone who works for him, are they not too afraid to say to him, Mr. President, you got to stop saying that. You can't base your whole policy on the idea that Putin has vowed he's coming for Poland and Germany next. He did not either, man. What he said 1,000 times over was he's trying to protect the ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine who got left behind and then screwed over by the United States of America, by the way. It was John Brennan who started this war in 2014. Him and Barack Obama and Victoria Nuland. They're the ones who started this war, not Russia.
No, that's right. Yeah, 100%. And there's and as we've discussed many times, and you're working on a book about this, but it is interesting how even like even the hawks on this who support the policy will kind of acknowledge that it all started in 2014. You know what I mean? Like,
when Putin took Crimea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But you're like, okay, but so something there is really the start of this, right? Because they'll almost say, like, he invaded the country in 2014, and not just referring to Crimea, but referring to whatever, the little green men or whatever, who he did send into the Donbass region there.
In August.
But it is, I've heard, not just from Joe Biden, but I've heard from many people in the corporate media, that line about how Putin has said that if he's successful in Ukraine, then the Baltics are next and Poland's next and these NATO countries are going to be next. And they say, like, I've been fairly convinced. I'm like, I think that lady on the news believes that. Like, I don't think she's lying through her teeth. It's always like, yes, you're speculating.
But
I'm like, I think whoever's in her ear is telling her that. And I know from my limited time in the cable news world, I do know like that is how it works, is that these people, like, in the same way that like I have my like kind of like, experts who I rely heavily on, and everybody does for the most part. You just kind of like, you got to pick a good group, of people to have. But like, so if I have like, like I have you and the guys at antiwar.com who I, like seriously, all the guys some of whom you mentioned earlier from the Libertarian Institute, but all of those guys like Dave DeCamp and Connor and Kyle and it's Connor Friedman and Kyle Anzalo. Am I saying his
Anzalone?
Anzalone. Yeah. Like these guys help me out a lot. You know, I'll shoot them questions sometimes and they get me, you know, like good sources on it and everything. And I've got like Gene Epstein and Bob Murphy, like economic, you know, kind of experts. And you have like but the people in cable news, it's the same. It's just they have really, really bad people who are, you know, like it's like when Essie Cupp would be, you know, she would tell me like when we'd be talking before the show, or she'd be like, yeah, I just got off the phone with Dick Cheney's chief of staff. And he's telling me that blah, 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 blah about Syria. You know, not like this was Dick Cheney's former chief of staff, but
you're like, John Hanna, that
like,
son of a bitch.
You're like, yes, the guy who's wrong about everything that he said. But, you know, so they've got these people and they oftentimes are not engaging with primary sources. You know what I mean? They're hearing from someone who's deemed expert, who has a very fancy sounding title. You know what I mean? Like this is the guy, this is the number 3 at the Rand Institute. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like and so they're getting, and I do wonder how many of them like don't know that like, not only has Vladimir Putin never said anything remotely close to I'm reconstituting the Soviet Union or I'm going to move on Poland. He's, you know, take him for his word for whatever value it is, but he's explicitly saying, no, the only way I'm going to be in a war with Poland is if Poland attacks Russia. Like he's very clear. And
as you say, he very well could be lying his ass off.
Sure.
But let's not go misquoting the guy. We're in the middle of a war.
Right.
And we're pretending that all of Europe's future's at stake instead of Dnipropetrovsk, which nobody actually gives a damn about.
Right, exactly. And so like, let's be honest about what the battle is here.
And I'm not sorry that I said that wrong. I don't care.
That's right. Well, the question is more about like whether Luhansk will be ruled by Kiev or Moscow rather than does all of Europe fall to the Soviet Union that doesn't exist.
And in fact, he's like repeatedly mocked this. It goes, look, man, you know, our entire gross domestic product is less than you guys spend on your military. I'm going to get involved in a war with NATO, a conventional war with NATO.
Yeah, like it just makes
Don't be stupid. No, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Which I know the Hawks take that and they go, yeah, well, that's why we got to bring Ukraine into NATO, or that's why we should have. But the thing is, no, that he would have just invaded faster then.
Yep.
Earlier then to prevent that outcome.
No, it's like, we should have brought Ukraine into NATO. It's like, first of all, you were trying, and that's what led to this.
Right.
And then the other thing aside from that, right, which is like the obvious retort that you just gave, is that no, and again, because of the heroic Julian Assange, we know the Burns memos and stuff to Condoleezza Rice, the net means yet. Like, no, he made it very clear this was his red line and he would move on this. But the other thing is that it's like, it's total bullshit that the reason Ukraine isn't in NATO, even aside from Vladimir Putin would have, is because you guys couldn't. You couldn't get them in there because first of all, there was too much resistance from Germany and there was too much resistance from other Europeans who knew this would be such a provocation of Putin. And also because Ukraine is such a fucking mess that they were never going to meet the requirements. You know what I mean? Like it was always so stupid to be openly like bragging about how we're about to do this thing and just provoking a war for nothing when you never even were going to be able to bring them in.
Yep.
Right.
No, it wasn't about bringing Ukraine into NATO. It was for the sacred principle that we can if we want to, and you can't stop us, even though, no, of course we're not going to. You know, we can't for all these other reasons, but certainly not because you said we can't.
Yeah.
You know, and then that was it. That was what the war was over from in terms of not the Civil War or the Ukraine-Russia war, but the America-Russia war here, which is the rest is encompassed within, was over that. It was over this made up, lingo, right? The open door policy was just something they came up with at a NATO conference in 2004, or maybe it was in 1999. I think it was I had this wrong and I just corrected myself in the book. I think it was in 1999 that they first said that. And there's this Helsinki Accord where they agreed that any country can join any alliance that they want and whatever. So they were building on that from back then. But still, like, these are just words. And so are, hey, you better respect my sphere of influence or I'm going to start bombing the place. Those are words too. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the same. And you might say it's totally unfair. Like, why should Ukraine have to suffer Russia? Only because they're next door. Same reason the Palestinians got to suffer the Israelis, I guess. You know what I mean? Same reason the poor people of Latin America have had to suffer the United States for the last 200 years, you know, because those are the breaks.
Yeah, but that's how progressive America is. We make people suffer even when they're not next door. You don't even have to be that close to us. Right. And you're in our sphere of influence. If you're on the globe, you're in America's sphere of influence.
That's right. No sphere of influence for you because the entire sphere is our sphere of influence. keep yours within your borders only. And even then, until we can come up with a color-coded revolution to overthrow your ass.
Yep.
You know?
Well, it does seem to me, and we're coming up here against the end of time, but I'm curious for your thoughts on this, since you are the guy writing the book on it right now. So I kind of felt like when the war first broke out in Ukraine, and I mean in 22, not the civil war that started in 2014, but it seemed like, okay, this is like an incredibly dangerous game. Then, as you know, look, certainly. When did Vladimir Putin say he could be in Kiev in 2 weeks? Was that in
14?
That was in 2014, right?
Yeah, he said to an Italian.
Look, there's no question that the period between 2014 and 2022, where in many ways Ukraine was like a de facto member of NATO. They're doing joint military exercises with NATO and Ukraine, and then of course the weapons that were sent in pre-22, and then of course the insane amount of weapons that have been sent in since then. This does seem to have changed the calculation, where Ukraine can put up more of a fight now than they would have probably otherwise been able to put up.
Sure, yeah.
But it also did seem like over the last year that Russia's winning. It's kind of an inevitability. If you remember, what was it, like around 6 months ago, there was that Time magazine piece that really was like Zelensky's lost his own military. They're not even following his orders anymore. None of these guys,
chief, and replaced him.
Right. But like they were like, no one believes he can even win the war anymore. And it did seem like it was at least the worst dangers of it, from my perspective at least, were like kind of being tempered because, well, if Vladimir Putin's winning, he's not about to start launching nukes. It's like the bigger fear was like him losing and what somebody does when they're losing. You know, like the biggest fear for any leader who has nukes is that they'd be in a Gaddafi-like position where they think they're about to get like fucking sodomized to death, and then fuck it. Maybe that's the time when you just like let some nukes fly. But then now, over the last few months, with this stuff with like approving attacks within Russia's borders, it just seems like, oh, we've escalated the worst case scenario again for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, look, I mean, I should say that like, if we're talking about any two countries fighting and one invades the other, then like, go ahead and invade them back. I don't give a damn. Like, what, you know, I don't know. But in this case, America is completely implicated in this. So it's not a matter of like Ukraine doing what they want. They got to stay within the restrictions of the United States, and they more or less have. But then those restrictions keep getting loosened. If you go back to the start of the war, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, there's a piece in the Washington Post about this where, forgot them all, but rule number 2 was keep the war geographically contained inside Ukraine. Like, even on the last day when they win and force the Russians back across the border, don't chase them. You know, just we're fighting for every inch of Ukraine and that's it, etc. Not that they're ever going to get that, but that was the stricture. Then as they're getting more desperate, now they're lashing out. So what strategic advantage can be gained from using these HIMARS rocket artillery to hit? I mean, they're hitting missile trucks, you know, like, in other words, equivalent artillery,
right?
You know, on the other side, this kind of thing. What strategic advantage do they get from that? Nothing. You know, hitting a air base or whatever it is that they're getting, all that can be replaced quickly, right? It's not even necessarily a tactical advantage. And, you know, maybe it would be in the middle of any one battle or something. Overall, what it's really doing, I think, it should be looked at politically. It's meant, I think, to provoke the Russians into doing worse in order to provoke the Americans into providing more aid and doubling down Western support. It's a tough position to be in, leading a weak country, getting the crap kicked out of it by a much more powerful one. But you also have all these powerful allies, but they're only so willing to help you sometimes, whatever. And, you know, this is something that, you know, in the Bosnia War, the Muslims would often fake attacks against their own people. I mean, really kill people, but do false flag attacks and this kind of thing in order to cry victim on CNN. Christian Amanpour and all that would carry the message, and to get Bill Clinton to intervene. And he's Begovic, I don't know how you say his name. I sometimes can say his name, the leader of the Bosnian Muslims. He said this openly. Like, yeah, we're trying to get our own people killed more so that we provoke Bill Clinton into coming and helping us. This kind of so.
Well, there you go.
That's a
Quote
dynamic.
mining again.
I know. I'm always doing that.
That was what I got criticized for.
I love that.
The other day is they said, we're talking about Israel propping up Hamas, and they go, oh, you're quote mining. This is used as activists by this is like a technique. You find random quotes here or there, and some of these quotes are taken out of context. You're like, how about everyone? Here's everyone admitting it in their own words. That's not evidence now.
That's kind of a fun thing. We're like, okay, from now on, no one can ever cite anything that anybody ever said before, especially like if they're admitting something that you're trying to use against them. Because I got this new phrase. I just say, quote mining, and then you have to stop.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay attention anymore.
Your Honor,
Your
Honor, I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit A. This is a written confession by the defendant. You go, objection, Your Honor, quote mining. They're quote mining in the courtroom.
I got this 400-page memoir that the guy wrote here. Can I quote out of that? It seems very deliberate what he's trying to get across here.
Well, I also like when they'll be like, there'll be one thing where like you'll be like, hey, look, this guy admitted it in his own words, and they'll be like, yeah, well, this other guy denied it, and it's like, yeah, but like, look, man, if 5 people come out of a room and there's like a dead guy, and like 4 of them are like, we had nothing to do with it, and then the 5th guy's like, I admit it, we all fucking did it. It's like, you're like, well, one of them denies it, one of them confesses to it. I guess it's just we'll toss both of those out. It's like, no, let's focus on the confession part. Yeah. That seems like it's relevant.
The statement against interest here.
Yeah, like, right? Isn't that fairly relevant in this? Yeah, but anyway, it is something where so like immediately after October 7th, there were calls from insane people, but insane people who are senators like Lindsey Graham to bomb Iran. Yeah. And why is that? Because even if we don't have evidence that they were directly implicated in October 7th, we know they've funded Hamas, and therefore you're now guilty along with them. And you're like, okay, but how does that not apply to Israel? Why? Because they did their funding indirectly through Qatar, that then what? It's okay. Like it doesn't. And then just.
And what's the real intel on Iran funding Hamas lately anyway? I know they had a big split over Syria because Hamas took Al-Qaeda's side in that one, at least rhetorically. And the Shiites were pissed off about that. So if you told me that they had resumed some payments, I'd believe you, I guess. But I'd like to see the
I've seen no evidence that there's been that they've been like recently propping them up or anything. And it is pretty funny, just like the mental gymnastics around the Qatari money going to Hamas. Yeah. Even like with the New York Times reporting about the Mossad chief going over there just a couple weeks before October 7th. But even like what's also like funny about all of it is that it's like, okay, Iran, this country who just happens to be, the one that was put on the axis of evil, and it just happens to be like this country that the neocons have had a boner for a war with for the last 20 plus years, really 30 plus years or something like that. These guys funded Hamas. Like, let's just say for the sake of argument, like whatever, they've funded Hamas. They've certainly done business with them in the past, right? But it's like, okay, but Qatar over here, they're an ally of the US, and they're at least in effect a partnership with Israel. You know what I mean? And
but their treason was part of the Netanyahu doctrine, Dave.
Exactly.
So that doesn't count.
They're just off the hook for that. And then somehow it's just like, oh well, that was humanitarian aid. Is how it's like. Israel's guilty of allowing aid in.
Well,
so this is what everyone's saying.
That was the
now.
guy was arguing with you and was saying, look, all this was about was, look, we got them under siege, so we got to at least, like it says in the WikiLeaks. We got them on a diet. We want to keep them hungry, not starving.
Right.
So, which is like the sickest thing in the world. But then he's saying that's all this is we're keeping them just hungry, not starving, Dave, by letting them have some humanitarian aid in or whatever. But what's funny about that is that's not any kind of refutation of the accusation, because in all of the quotes, and most all of this stuff comes from Israeli media in the first place, where they talk about this, that as the New York Times quotes them putting it, buying quiet. That was always part of it. The quote of Netanyahu saying, listen, guys, if you want to prevent a two-state solution, we have to keep propping up Hamas because that keeps them good and divided and conquered so we can go on and do our thing. That ends with him saying, don't worry, we control the height of the flame. In other words, the point is we've tamed them. I figured out how to control these people with my carrots and sticks, and I'm giving them just enough money to keep them compliant, to keep them under wraps. Well, at the same time, I can turn to the global community, such as it is, the West, the Europeans, the Americans, and I guess in Tel Aviv, big city liberals in Israel, and tell them, look, we have no partner for peace. It's such a wonderful slogan. It's very easy to memorize and repeat. And you take one look at Hamas, you really want us to negotiate with these guys? And especially if you don't know that much about them, you can just go, well, no, they're absolute beasts who never could sit down and sign a deal worth the ink it's printed on or whatever. Like, we're just supposed to take that as a given.
Yeah. Well, look, even
when in fact, I mean, it's not just a terrorist organization, and they kill innocent civilians and damn them for it, but it is also a domestic insurgency. I mean, these people aren't just fighting because they're Muslims. They're fighting because they're under total despotism, under total control and occupation by this foreign military power. People don't understand a lot of times. They talk about Israel, Palestine. It sounds like they already have a country, right? But Israel's on top of Palestine. These Palestinians are essentially living on an Indian reservation here. They already got whooped back in 1967. And they've been under Israeli control this whole time. So you're saying you got to do X until they stop resisting. Well, X is not going to work, especially if it's just X means bomb them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to keep resisting. And of course, the leader, we've been at this for almost 10 months now of them bombing these people, or maybe it is 10 months now. And the Israeli generals now echo the American CIA and the New York Times saying this isn't going to work, by the way. This can not work. And at the end of the war, Hamas will still be there because Hamas is an idea. All it means is it's an acronym for whatever they originally called it, but it just means fighting age males who dare to fight you. And as long as you keep these people on your thumb, they're just going to keep fighting. It doesn't justify what they're doing, but it's especially when they're killing innocent people. But it certainly explains the reality of the situation, and certainly compared to the way that they portray it on TV here, where you really might think that Palestine is the country next door and that they've invaded Israel, and the Israelis are now only, fighting them off.
Yeah. And it's, look, to the initial point there about kind of like, which Netanyahu and many others have admitted, but here we go, quote mining again, that part of the strategy of propping up Hamas was that you could turn to the world. And as Ehud Barak and I think a couple others even admit, also to liberal Israelis,
right?
You know what I mean? To also, well, this is the establishment pro-Israel talking point. I mean, this is what Dennis Prager said to me when we debated, is he goes, listen, man, like, I was crying when Bill Clinton and Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin all shook hands and stuff. And I was like, yes, we could have a two-state solution. Finally, peace for like the Jewish people in the region. Like, he was like, I was so on board with that. And then this is what Noam from the Comedy Cellar told me the same thing. That was like, look, there were all these people who were for a two-state solution. And then the second intifada, this changed it all, And then it was like, oh, and then Hamas.
And what started the second intifada?
Well,
Mohammed came up from hell and told them to.
Right.
I guess it wasn't anything Ariel Sharon did threatening to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and take it over for the Jews.
Or just the
that
peace,
wasn't a big deal.
Or
or
the
anything.
peace process. And that's on the heels of the peace process kind of crumbling, right? So it's like the hope goes out and then you have the Temple Mount,
It was right in the middle of it. No, it was in the fall of 2000. So it was,
right.
At the, I guess just the very tail end of Camp David, but before Taba.
Right.
And
right.
And of course, yeah.
So
and was a deliberate provocation. Why would Ariel Sharon do such a thing? Because he's such a devout religious man.
Yeah.
He's trying to start a war.
But there is something kind of interesting, even in that admission, even from the Israeli or the pro-Israeli perspective, where they're kind of like, look, like I was all for a two-state solution until these Hamas guys start being a bunch of fucking terrorists. And you're like, well, yeah, see, exactly. So all you got to do is just take that and go, okay, but they're also telling you in their own words that they get that. They get that about you.
Right.
That they get that, like, yes, see, here's one of the ways in which Hamas is an asset. It takes all these people who otherwise would be for a two-state solution and makes them go, no. Well, then I guess we just got to subjugate these people forever instead. Yeah. You're like, that does seem kind of convenient.
It's brilliant. And look, so if people search, it's easy to find. It's by my guy Connor Freeman and myself. It's called Netanyahu's support for Hamas backfired. And
I've shared it several times. I just tweeted it the other day, but
Okay,
definitely worth reading.
And there's more since then. There's a New York Times story since then. There's a couple more things since then, but we have a huge compendium of quotes there of Likudniks talking about this policy. The whole reason for bolstering Hamas is part of the Netanyahu doctrine to keep the Palestinians divided and conquered, while at the same time making these phony Abraham Accord peace deals with the Sunni Arab states, which essentially just symbolized them finally selling out the Palestinians all the way down the river, that they had always promised will never fully normalize relations with Israel until they give justice to the Palestinians. And Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law and White House advisor, Netanyahu's godson, said, well, what's your price? The American people can afford it. They're living under a bridge. They got no expenses. And so he gave our money to Qatar, Bahrain, to Bahrain, UAE,
right.
Sudan, and Morocco to sign these accords. And then Netanyahu should be infamously gave that speech at the United Nations at the end of September saying, I won, you lost. I get it all and you get nothing. You get no citizenship, you get no independent state, you get full subjugation on your reservation, and no one's coming for you, scumbag. You were holding out hope that someone was coming for you. No one's coming for you.
That was Netanyahu's mission accomplished moment.
That's
right?
exactly
so
what it was.
It was the height.
And he even has a visual aid like he always does.
Yep.
Instead of a cartoon bomb this time, it's a map of the new Middle East. Now, that was mocking Shimon Peres, who said the new Middle East is we're going to deal with the Palestinians so that we can make peace with the Sunni states. Now Netanyahu's going, I made peace with the Sunni states without doing business with the Palestinians. So screw you, Shimon Peres's legacy. This is the Netanyahu doctrine, uber alles. I win and you all lose.
It reminds me of the mission accomplished moment, because you're almost like, dude, if you could freeze time right there, you could kind of make it look like you won. Like if you just don't play this tape forward at all, just leave it right there and you go, see? My strategy worked. But then you're only like a couple weeks from like catastrophe, like the entire thing blowing up in your face. And
hey, wait, that reminds me of an important point too, that people have to understand this, and TV is never going to explain it in this way, that like Hamas got really lucky and the Israeli government was absolutely derelict in their duty of keeping those people penned in their prison effectively. Okay. But the point there being, that's why we call it October 7th, because it was over by supper time and it didn't continue into the 8th and the 9th and the 10th. It was a one-day event. And from that point on, they could have simply laid siege to the place, as they already have, but like increased security there, taken divisions away from confiscating land from innocent Palestinians on the West Bank and put them back on guard duty. And then there's no ongoing threat from Hamas to the Israeli state or the Israeli civilian population whatsoever. I mean, they had these kibbutzes were right outside, just a mile or 2 miles or whatever from Gaza, and separated quite a bit from the rest of Israeli, urban society further north from there. And for a variety of reasons, including Netanyahu's fight over the Supreme Court, which had caused a bunch of officers to resign, and including making a political alliance with these right-wing kooks in order to keep him in the prime minister chair and therefore out of prison. He had to move a bunch of troops from Gaza guard duty to go and babysit the religious kooks as they're confiscating land, settlers confiscating land from Palestinians on the West Bank and all this. But so in other words, just like with the Branch Davidians, you can't afford to wait. Not that the Branch Davidians ever killed anyone. I'm not making that parallel, but I'm saying you can't afford to wait these people out. Like there is no ongoing threat here. They make it sound like this is some kind of existential fight for survival for Israel. The Israelis are in no danger at all from Hamas if the IDF just shows up for work. They don't have to do this at all. They've killed tens of thousands of people. They've razed the entire place to the ground. If people don't know this, you can search the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. All compare the devastation to Dresden and Hamburg in World War II, to Tokyo. And of course, Netanyahu does too, and says, I've never heard of the Geneva Conventions that were created after World War II. World War II is the benchmark. And if you guys can burn Dresden and Tokyo, then I can burn Gaza, even though Gaza is the Warsaw Ghetto, not the Third Reich.
Yeah, really.
But still, that's, he's written himself a moral permission slip to kill every last one of those animals, as he and his government call them. And just what they've done is so far beyond what even any psycho could pretend is necessary to defend the people of Israel. It's just like 30 years ago, they did pretend that the Branch Davidians were a threat to the people of Waco. They'd been there for 60 years or whatever, but they were going to march. And they said, I got quotes of this from my thing that I did last year on it. But they said, oh yeah, no, the Branch Davidians, they were going to march on downtown Waco. They were going to kill everybody at the McDonald's, and then they were going to seize the city council. Liars.
Yeah.
Liars. But that's what they do. They pretend that they're protecting you, but they're not protecting you. And of course, the Israelis, they're just fed pure military censored information in their media. So who knows like how skewed their point of view on the thing is. But just to reiterate how absolutely unnecessary this is, again, when the head of the Israeli military admits there's no such thing as a situation where they're going to hunt down the last Hamas guy and then Hamas has been eradicated, like in their stated goal, the impossible. And so instead, this is all just collateral damage on a mission that cannot be accomplished.
Yeah, and the irony in some weird way here is that the only genuinely existential threat to Israel is continuing this. Like, this is actually what's putting Israel in a real, like, in actual jeopardy. Yeah. Where you're like, dude, you have turned, like, you have, for at least a generation, greatly altered the perception of Israel. Yeah. I mean, and look, and that does come with a lot of ugliness too. I mean, there has been, look, there's no question, like I see it on social media and shit. Yeah. There has been a rise of anti-Semitism and Jew hatred that's resulted from all of this. And look, if you want to argue that that was always under the surface and that it kind of like was brought up by this, it's like, okay, you could make that argument to some degree. That's true. Hard to quantify exactly to what degree it is, but it's like,
that's such bullshit. Well, listen, right wingers who are actually anti-Semitic don't give a crap about Arabs and Palestinians at all. Yes. And it's not their issue. They can talk all day long about Jews, and they might say, look at how horrible they are to the Palestinians, just to say how horrible they are. But it is nothing like sticking up for the Palestinians. And as far as people on the left or libertarians or leftists who are sticking up for the Palestinians, man, they're not anti-Semitic. They're not any kind of racist. That's the worst thing in the world you can be as a racist.
They may be against straight white people or something.
Maybe.
But I get,
but honestly,
I get your point.
Even then, Jews in America and everywhere else still have the reputation of being an oppressed minority. Like, even if they're wealthy, there's still a small number of them, and they're not allowed in some places, and the WASPs are still mean to them. They're also a minority and are considered one by other minorities. Generally speaking, what happens is people learn about what's happening in Israel, Palestine, and they go, oh, I'm actually not seeing a bunch of poor, downtrodden Holocaust victims here. I'm seeing a bunch of vicious Holocaust perpetrators who I no longer have any sympathy for whatsoever. Has nothing to do with their religion other than that they invoke it to justify their sins.
Well, I guess, look, the point I'm making is just that, like, I do see on social media, and you never know with this stuff. Like, I don't know, half of it, people are trolling. There's teenagers on there. I don't know. But there are people who, like, would legitimately be classified as like Jew haters. Yeah. But I'm just saying, even for those people,
but I'm just saying not who stick up for the Palestinians. No.
Yes,
so,
yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm not conflating like those groups, but I'm just saying, if you want to argue that that's on the rise, well, then, like, the worst thing you could do is to conduct this war in the manner that you've conducted it in over the last 8 months, in the most brutal way. I mean, come on, talk about like just giving them propaganda when it's totally unnecessary to do this. But look, I mean, I will say so roughly speaking, you have kind of like this interesting reemergence of an anti-war left over the last few months. And I do think that there's a ton of baggage that the left has inherited from the last, decade plus that has been a weird funhouse mirror version of left-wing ideology. Yeah. And they have a lot of that baggage with them. there's things that I've seen that have been like disturbing, like the things on social media and things that have been said at some of these protests. But like the bottom line, I thought actually Dave DeCamp had such a great tweet. Again, the best tweets are always the really simple ones. But it was he responded to go follow Dave DeCamp, by the way, if you don't already. He does a morning show for AntiWar.com.
Yeah, he's our news editor at AntiWar.com.
And his pieces are always just brilliant. But he wrote, I think it was Barry Weiss, I want to say, wrote something where she goes, I just saw something like a copy of like the Diary of Anne Frank like was like burned or something like I forget what she was. Yeah, statue, whatever. I can't remember the exact thing, but he goes, I just saw this statue of Anne Frank, blah blah blah, and I it's amazing, the symbol of anti-Semitic hate that I just witnessed, blah blah. And Dave DeCamp just tweets her, and he goes, "Oh, I just saw a Palestinian's child who had their skin blown off their face." And it's just like, isn't that the perfect way to say it? It's like, oh look, I'm willing to grant you that the thing you saw was kind of disturbing, But like, could we talk about this first and then we'll get to that one later? Because like, come on here. Let's like, who's really the victimized group here? Yeah. And so like that pretty much to me says it all.
These IDF guys said last week that they kill people out of boredom. Yeah. They kill innocent Palestinians when they're bored. They said that.
Quote mining again.
I guess.
You're guilty again of quote mining.
I know, yeah. Whenever someone admits that I'm right about something and I cite that, I gotta stop doing that.
Look at you remembering what they admit. That's cheating, dude. You're not allowed to do that. You're just allowed to, I don't know.
One of your comedian friends asked me the other night at the mothership, he was, so why should I be a libertarian? The Waco.
Who asked that?
I'm sorry, I forgot his name. The kind of muscular black guy. Really like kind of funny guy, dude.
Yeah.
Very
that's
high,
right. Yeah.
high spirited guy, very happy guy.
Yes. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. I know the guy.
He's Robbie's guy. Which, by the way, I was able to hang at amateur night in the backyard with Robbie. I admit I'm not quite ready for the stage at the mothership yet, but I was okay in the backyard. But anyway, he asked me. He goes, "Why should I be a libertarian?" I go, "Waco, dude. They burned all those little kids and called it a suicide. It's 100 miles from where you live now."
Yeah.
Like, I got to elaborate? Like, what else do you need to know? These people are your enemy. I was just reading this morning. Well, I said that to him. It's now 2 days ago, whatever. This story's in the New York Times Magazine right now about a guy who they convicted and gave him 25 years in the pen for shaking his baby to death. But man, he didn't shake his baby to death. Just this subhuman scum. Police officers, district attorneys, and judges, these government employees, and these cops' wives on the jury, they just conspired to put this innocent guy in the pen because his baby died. And they do this all the time. They do this to people all the time. You hear people, they go, man, they ought to take, I don't know about deporting every single immigrant, but like every immigrant felon's got to be deported right now. Okay, but I know a lady who was convicted of burning a building down, but she didn't do it. They just convicted her of it because you know how it goes. The courts are a government program, and they don't give a damn about the defendants coming in and out of there. It's like they're flipping burgers. Next. I got to do 30 of these today. Next. They don't care.
Well, it's the thing that that Thomas Sowell he credited with turning him. So he was like a young Marxist, and then he got a government job. And I think it was in like the labor department. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he was like, oh, just the experience working there, like converted him away from it, because he was like the undeniable truth that you come into contact with right away is like your theory, your dippy theory, however you feel about it. Nobody at the labor department is concerned, even kind of concerned with whether what they're doing is actually helping people or not. Like that's just not the concern. The concern is like, they're institutional survival instincts and like how can we grow our power, maintain our power, how can we do this? And you recognize the same thing if you know anyone who's been touched by it or you've been touched by the justice system in America, you're like, it has very little to do with figuring out whether someone's guilty or not. It's about prosecutors who want to pad their records.
Keeping you on probation, paying fees and going to classes. And how are you supposed to have a job when you have to go to your PO at 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon and all these things, everything about it. It's just like the conversation we had with our new friend Scott the other night, who was a B-1 bomber pilot in Afghanistan and talking about no one asks about whether they're succeeding at anything that they're like, I'm trying to use the broadest language I can. Are they succeeding at anything that they're trying to accomplish? Are they actually trying to accomplish anything other than put that bomb on that target? And no one even knows why. No one even knows what the end is that this means is supposed to be justified by. It's simply a matter of the previous captain in charge. He only dropped X thousand bombs over his 4-month tour. I got to beat that.
Right.
Get out there and drop more bombs.
Yeah, it's actually that insane. All right, listen, we're up against time here, so we got to wrap. But dude, this was great. Always great having you on. And I can't tell people enough, when the book comes out, I'm really excited for everyone to see it. It's a masterpiece.
Hey, you know
man.
what you should do? You should tell them really quick how much you like the last book, Enough Already, Dave.
Dude,
is that pretty good?
Listen, Enough Already is look.
Are you saying it's for sale now?
Yes, that's right. Okay, let's promote the one that is for sale. But listen, man, if you haven't, and I say this everywhere I go, it's the book. If you want to read a book and understand the history of the terror wars from Jimmy Carter up through Donald Trump, you got to go read Enough Already. It's freaking incredible. And of course, as we mentioned up top, this is the Libertarian Institute summer fundraiser. If you can help at all with that, in this world of libertarianism, there's no better cause that I could vouch for than the Libertarian Institute. All the great guys over there. So thanks, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right,
wait. And also, I host a podcast. I've done 6,000 interviews, and you can listen to them all at scotthorton.org and at youtube.com/Scott Horton Show, and all your favorite podcatchers and that kind of thing.
Hell yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time. Peace.